Press freedom in Latin America is indeed under threat from regimes that seek to squash any dissenting voices. The Inter-American Press Association noted at its 70th General Assembly in October that press freedoms and freedom of expression have suffered a noticeable decline in last year, in 2014. Venezuela's law of 2004, La Ley de Responsabilidad Social en Radio y Televisión, is designed to muzzle broadcast media into submission, leaving journalists and editors with no choice but to self-censor their own content. The Venezuelan model has been copied successfully, lamentably, in Argentina's 2009 law, Ley de Servicio de Comunicación, and Ecuador's Ley Orgánica de Comunicación, and as we speak, the Bolivian government threatens to enact a similar law. In Ecuador, we also see journalists being attacked and sued by Correa, as all of you have pointed out, or media outlets fined for running articles that are deemed to be in opposition to the current regime in power. In Nicaragua, Ortega continues to restrict press freedom by harassing and seeking to censor media outlets or making it difficult for them to operate in a free and open environment. Equally concerning are the physical attacks that journalists have suffered at the hands of police forces and armed thugs on the orders of officials seeking to curtail coverage of events that portray a negative image of their decadent regimes. In my native homeland of Cuba, Freedom House ranks Cuba 193 out of 199 in their press freedom ratings. And despite the Obama administration's best efforts to present to us a changing Cuba, as the panelists have pointed out, the Castro regime still considers clandestine printing as a crime against the public order, and many of the digital media, as you have pointed out, are available for outside of Cuba, but normal everyday Cubans have no access to it. And furthermore, any press outlet that tries to portray an independent analysis of the reality of what occurs in Cuba, such as the human rights violations and the continued attacks against las damas de blanco, the ladies in white, they're expelled from the country. Yet despite a decline in press freedom, nowhere does the battle for freedom rage stronger than in the confines of cyberspace. Latin America and all of its regimes are increasingly challenged by digital vehicles such as social media, blogs, internet news aggregators. It's become impossible to hide its atrocities from being documented in graphic, painstaking detail by social media, even if it's not available in those countries, angering the perpetrators who have tried in varying degrees of success to ban these digital vehicles. And so this is a key moment for the future of a free press in Latin America. The United States must remain vigilant of proposals to regulate or censor the internet in our hemisphere. A free internet is the key to fighting against the atrocities in Latin America and the last bastion of freedom against the scornful, tyrannical regimes that plague our hemisphere today. I want to ask Dr. Ponce about Venezuela. December 6th is elections. Is it plausible for an election to be considered fair if opposition candidates can only spread their messages almost exclusively through the internet? One of the main concerns in Venezuela is the imposing size of state-owned media. Critical outlets like El Universal and Globovisión, among many others, have been swallowed by the hegemonic state apparatus. And now we've got the elections coming up. They no longer count on a vehicle to deliver their messages to the general public. How do you analyze the upcoming elections and the viability of candidates without access to the state-owned media?
Yeah, as simple as no. No, the truth is about Venezuela is everything is manipulated the election from the selection of the authorities, the electoral authorities. They violate their own constitution to select the current members of the electoral authorities. They have violated the law, established new rules, changing the rules of the game. They did that before, and they continue doing that. Instead of electoral observers, they're going to have a escort service with UNASUR or whatever is there. They're not going to allow the European Union. They're not going to allow the OAS. Or if they allow them, it's going to be at the last minute. This is the time for the European Union, the OAS, or any serious institutions to begin to monitoring the investment in the campaign, the control of the media, the capacity of the opposition to fight back. They have been criminalizing some candidates, banning them for participating in the election. They have been also persecuting bloggers, web pages. La Patilla, some of the owners of the media have been persecuted by the regime. There's actually an activity directly by the President of the Parliament persecuting all the NGOs that work directly monitoring the institution, some of them monitoring the media. There's no separation of power. Even the international media, they have been kicking out the international media like NTN 24. They have been also restricting the access of CNN to Venezuela. So it is impossible with just some blogs and web page to control what's going on in Venezuela, to monitor the situation in Venezuela. It's going to be an uphill battle for a weak opposition to win a battle against a criminal authoritarian regime.
Well, thank you. And just one last note, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Sears. As we know, in Cuba, the Castro regime expects all press, works of literature, films, everything to meet an inflexible ideological standard set by the Communist Party before its content is disseminated to the masses. So we have a monopoly of the Communist Party hindering the free flow of information, and this impacts the work of pro-democracy activists and journalists and entrepreneurs, and they really have very few tools to get around this obstacle.